We've talked a lot about affordable rural housing on this programme and the fact that there's just not enough of it. Well, new research from the Campaign to Protect Rural England says that the problem will never be solved unless the powers that be start to distinguish between demand and need when it comes to rural housing. It argues that the two are being conflated in the government's planning policies, with the result that more countryside is being built on, but with little effect for lower income rural families. Paul Miner is from the CPRE. I asked him to explain the difference between demand and need.
Demand for housing includes rates of buying and selling on the open market. So overall demand for market housing, the amount of housing that people are willing to buy on the open market. It goes wider than need, which is people who can't compete on the open market or who need houses that are either not housing to buy, such as social rented housing or supported housing or housing for particular age groups.
And for developers, it's more attractive, I suppose, to be building for demand rather than actual need. So it's a more attractive proposition to build large executive-style houses rather than two-bedroom flats, for instance.
Yes, developers are able to make much higher prices through selling houses on the open market, especially given the buoyancy that we've seen in the housing market over recent years, which has been helped by government schemes such as Help to Buy, for example. Whereas with affordable housing schemes, other schemes that are meant to meet needs, that they also have to be built to specific requirements as well. And obviously, because they're for particular groups, that they either can't be sold at the same price or they have to be given to a housing association or a local authority to rent, so that the developer often takes a significant hit on their profit margin to be able to provide these houses.
So what could the government do realistically then to shift away from demand and towards need?
A big influence on whether we build housing that's needed or just housing that services demand is planning policy. And over the past 5 years, local authorities have had to work out what housing is needed in their area through doing an objective assessment of need. This objective assessment over the past 5 years has included both housing for the open market and housing that also meets social need. And what's given us real cause for concern is that we've looked at 62 rural authorities that have adopted plans since the government changed its policy in 2012. Overall, that they are providing close to enough land to meet market demand in these rural areas. But what they're not doing is providing all the land that they've assessed as being needed for affordable housing. So,
yeah, that's the difficulty, isn't it? Housing is controlled by the market, isn't it? So with local authorities more strapped for cash than ever, that will continue to be the case, won't it? I mean, how can you make sure that the right kind of houses are built in the right places rather than just the most profitable houses in the most sought-after places?
What gives us real cause for concern is that you'll get a number of large house builders and also land speculators who will see the spreadsheet of local authorities that the government has produced, look at a local authority which doesn't have enough land in its local plan, and then they'll buy up all this land and then look to sell it for a house builder on the basis that they'll just build market housing. And it's going to crowd out the affordable housing and make it much more difficult to provide. Local authorities have only provided about 18,000 houses in the past 3 years that can be considered affordable, and that's compared to a need for over 46,000 houses. So they're falling way short of the actual genuine affordable housing need that needs to be met in rural areas.
Paul Miner from the Campaign to Protect Rural England.